Hello, everybody. Welcome back to the Scaleway sessions. As always, I am Dan, Head of Developer Relations here at Scaleway, and I am joined live in the Paris studio, right over here, by Eli. Would you like to say hi, Eli?
Hello.
And as always, working the back end, the magic, the man who wasn't on the mic last time. Hopefully we can hear his delightful voice today. Diego, would you like to say hi, or at least attempt to this time around?
Can you hear me all right?
I can hear you.
I can hear you.
That's 2020, 2021, 2022. Can you hear me all right?
We can hear you now. Yeah. So this is just lovely that we're all here together, finally an opportunity to actually stream live. We're doing something a bit experimental today, and that is we're actually going to be doing some coding, some screen sharing, looking at the console. We're actually be playing around live and making mistakes and all the things that people do on stream, which is fun. And also, as you noticed previously, Eli, are in the same physical space, which we've not yet tried. So we apologize in advance. If there's some echoes, of course, we'll deal with that. If there's some audio, video weirdness, we'll deal with that. Also, I'm going to warn you now. If you have a heart condition, right? If you are sensitive to bright lights, all right, we're going to be switching for the live coding part. We're going to be switching to a different camera, and Eli and I will appear as the pastiest.
Yeah.
The whitest people
Yeah.
All right. So just warning you now. Exactly. We're not going to be able to benefit from these really nice, high quality MacBook cameras. We have a different camera that we're going to be sharing. Hence why Eli is labeled as Dan and Eli.
Yes.
Because I'm going to be turning this off momentarily.
Yes. And then this camera will become a camera that has actually both of us on it.
Yes.
Full time instead of just, every now and then.
Exactly. Although that's fun too, for obvious reasons. So what are we going to be doing today? We actually already got a question from the audience. Do I want to know, did Dan and Eli coordinate on the shirts? We did not.
Not at all. No.
We did not coordinate on the shirts. That is just a lovely coincidence.
Listen, great minds think alike.
Should have told me.
Fools seldom differ. It's true. Yeah. Exactly. But great question. Keep those questions coming. Super appreciate it. All right. Thank you so much. So what are we going to be doing today? Well, we've talked a little bit about Kubernetes on the past couple of streams, and this is just to get people's appetites a bit whetted, right? We have a lot of questions that come in from the community when we're on Slack, when we're on Twitter, when we're out at conferences, and people want to know, what is Kubernetes? Why should we use it? What are some ideas about it? And we thought, we'll bring in some people who are frankly much more knowledgeable, much more experienced in that area than we are. And let's talk about Kubernetes, try to get a feel for it, try to let people know that it's okay, that you have to start somewhere. Everybody has to start somewhere. And this is a good place to start. And so today we're going to be starting, right? We've had the conversations, we've talked to the people, and we're like, let's try to do the thing. And we talked about previously on stream how it's hard to know where to start. Okay, I want to learn something. I can read the documentation. I can read the getting started. I can do the hello world, right, of learning a new programming language. And then what? So we talked amongst ourselves and we thought, what better way to try something out than to actually try something out? And in this case, we're going to take a look at an open source project. It's called NoCodeDB. I guess I'm pronouncing it correctly.
This is classic Kubernetes, right? How do you pronounce the thing? Right?
How do you pronounce the thing?
It's right in.
Exactly. So I'm going to go with NoCodeDB. I think that's what it is.
Probably how it was intended.
NoCodeB or something like that. What is that? So we're going to take a look at it all together. Take a look at documentation. We're going to walk you through it. And then we are going to pretend that this is like a real project that we're setting up for the first time as developers or as infrastructure people or as whoever, trying to go, I have a tool I want to use, and I have infrastructure that I want to run it on. Now what? Right? And that's what we're going to go through. So what does that mean for us? It means we're going to take a look at the software. We're going to see if it has, I don't know, is it containers? Do I have to make install like it's 1997? right? We don't know. We're going to figure that out. Then we're going to spin up some infrastructure. And instead of diving directly into Kubernetes, because we're going to pretend like we've never seen it before, right? We're going to just go, let's fire up an instance and see if we can just make the software go under, a limited set of conditions. And then once we are confident that we can make the software go, right? Then we'll go, okay, what's the next step? Let's sprinkle a little K8s.
Let's do
into the
Kubernetes.
mix. Let's do the thing,
Mm.
right? That's the idea for today. So as always, if you have any questions, if you have any comments, feel free to join us on stream here on Twitch. We got somebody monitoring YouTube, I think, as well. Hit us up in the community Slack. We're hanging out in there. I don't have my eyes on everything. If somebody's commenting on Twitter, I don't see it, but trust me, we will read it afterwards. So do get in touch. We're gonna have some fun today. Are we ready to dive in?
Yes, apparently we have a deep beep going on. I can't hear anything coming through my speakers. Diego, do you hear anything?
Nope.
All right.
Everything sounds fine here.
Well, we'll
Yeah,
keep an ear
we'll
out
see.
for it.
There's
Yep.
nothing in here that I can hear that's making a beeping noise.
No, we've got
So-
background hum, but
Yeah. So that's well, I guess we'll keep thank you
Yes.
for letting us know.
Thank you for the heads up.
We will do nothing and hopefully the problem will go away on its own.
So far, yeah.
Let us
Probably
know.
we're working on
Let
that.
us know in the chat or whatever if you are experiencing the same thing, and then that way at least we can get a repro on the issue and debug it at a later date.
we'll file a JIRA ticket.
Exactly. We will file. Oh, the tickets we will file.
Oh yeah.
Okay. So here's what we're gonna do. I'm gonna go ahead and I'm gonna change my camera, and we're gonna put on Pastovision.
Oh, yeah.
And then we're gonna start sharing a screen. So here we go.
Right. Pastovision.
Vision activated. Oh, we're so pasty. Oh.
My hair is genuinely the exact same color. I mean, in real life it also is actually.
It is actually, yeah. So this is Pastovision. Welcome to Pastovision.
Bring you the latest in white people news.
Oh my goodness.
I don't even know what joke to make there.
I guess, yes, there's really no safe direction to go from there. So we're going to continue to look now this way instead of looking down here. We're going to continue to look this way because this is where you can see us now. And I'm also going to go ahead and I'm going to share a screen because we all like to share screens. So we are going to take and bring up the NoCodeDB website. And in fact, I have not yet shared my screen. So why don't I go ahead and do that?
Oh, are they using pop-ins as well? That doesn't make sense until Dan shared his screen, but
There we go.
so many people in software use the same font. Scaleway uses it. My last job used it.
I mean, it's a pretty popular font.
You wander around the conference expo hall and see
Pretty
how
much
people
this
use it.
is it. Like if you are an open source project that also wants to
Poppins.
maybe sell something, that's
Yeah.
the font.
There we go. There
Yeah.
it is. I don't actually know if that is Poppins. I can't quite tell, but I don't think it is. I think the A's, the lowercase A's are different.
Excellent.
You have great eye for fonts. From is Times New Roman, Comic Sans, probably.
Yeah, I mean,
Verdana.
I don't know. I think we should probably just go Comic Sans for life, really, but that's my unpopular opinion.
It's
That's
not
fine.
Poppins.
It's fine to have an unpopular
Final
opinion.
verdict.
So what is NoCodeDB? Now, if you're curious why this one as opposed to literally any other open source project we could have selected. So I'm going to walk you through it. If you have ever sat down with me for more than 5 minutes, it's very likely that I have talked about Airtable.
Can confirm.
All right, can confirm. Exactly. I've been using Airtable for many years. I modestly call myself a power user of Airtable. I think it's a really cool tool. If you haven't checked it out, what is Airtable? So very briefly, Airtable is a fairly complex, fairly powerful relational database that you interact with as if it were a web-based spreadsheet slash backend application with an API slash functions as a service provider. And if that sounds weird to you, it should, because it is kind of weird.
It's sort of, if you ever made a CRUD app, it's like, oh, why did I bother doing this when I could have used Airtable?
Yeah, exactly. So it is simultaneously like playing with the future and stepping backwards into the past at the same time. It's a lot of fun, and I do recommend people to check it out. But what it doesn't have is a self-hosted version. What it isn't is open source, right? So for a long time, it was the only game in town. It's what you had to get if you wanted to do the thing. Now there are some open source alternatives. NoCodeDB happens to be one of them. There are others. We've selected this one basically randomly.
It
right?
was the first one we tried and got working.
And we were like, oh, look, it sort of looks like the thing we want. So let's go on stream and mess around with it, right? I'm going to make maybe the font a little bigger, just because I know we're on stream. And one of the big complaints on stream, as always, is I can't read. It's on the screen share, so there we go. Hopefully that's a little bit bigger. Am I going to accept cookies? Doesn't appear that I have a choice. So GDPR.
Yeah.
Right.
At least they told you.
At least
You could have left the page.
Right. So very briefly, let's talk about what this is before we jump again headfirst into this. So it's an open source Airtable alternative. And that's why I want to talk about Airtable first, because it's literally how they describe themselves, right? It's an open source no-code platform that turns any database into a smart spreadsheet. The answer is yes. It looks like you're playing with the spreadsheet, but underneath it actually is a database, right? With tables and columns and rows and stored procedures and all sorts of like ridiculous stuff, but you play with it like you're playing with some sort of super powered spreadsheet. It's really, really cool. We're going to take a look. It supports a number of different databases on the back end. And it's always important when you're considering a new project, right? Does it do the things you expect it to do? MySQL, SQL, SQL, Postgres, SQLite, Maria, so on and so forth, right? Do we have accessible to us Postgres? Is that a thing we have? I think we do, right? We happen to work for a cloud computing company. Hi, this is the Scaleway sessions, right? And one of the things that we have available to us is Postgres, right? So, okay, so we know we have some Postgres. Some people apparently use it. Walmart, Accenture, American Express, Bosch. These are real organizations.
Yep.
So now it doesn't say what they use it for.
Technically, after today, we should be on that.
We'd be on this list. Yeah, exactly. I mean, for sure. And then we have somebody here from some company saying, it's the best ever, hooray! And obviously we got the tweets.
SAS.
Everybody
page.
wants to tweet, right? Create endless solutions. This sounds nice, right? Collaboration, just like a spreadsheet. So we can like,
I don't like that grammar.
I don't like that particular choice of option,
Continuous
but that's
scrolling.
fine. We can automate our business workflows. We can the Discord, the WhatsApp, the Twilio, the emails, the SMS. So we got some idea of possibly webhooks built into this, triggers of some type, some sort of programmatic API interaction. So that sounds very promising, right? Oh, look at this. Headless APIs, provide instant REST APIs, Swagger. So if you're familiar with Swagger, I've been talking a lot and my voice is already getting dry. Would Diego, would you, if you know anything about Swagger, tell the fine audience what that is, and I'm going to take a little drink of water.
My experience with Swagger is mostly as a thing that is put in a list of softwares that people use in their stack. But my understanding is it's to do with APIs and I'm going to sound like an absolute idiot here. Sorry. Knowing what the shape of your API is, being able to sort of go, okay, I need to call this API. I can have some way of knowing what the shape of object that I'm going to get back is. It's going to be JSON, but here's what's in it.
Right.
And I can know this as a Swagger somehow.
It's your API specification. It used to be the one of the two biggest tools until everything became Open API, the Open API specification.
There you go.
That's the thing I was trying to think of.
That's basically it. You describe your API, your endpoints, and each of the fields that your API is expecting to receive, their description, their data type, and also what the user will get back from a response. So yeah, it's pretty cool to document your API. It's really powerful because since you are creating this source of truth, then you're able to actually write code based on that. You can write unit tests or automate the creation of unit tests when you're trying to communicate with this API, or write tooling around it, because again, it's the source of truth of your software. So yeah, it's pretty cool.
Right on. So there we go. Thank you, Diego, for helping us understand what Swagger is and a little bit about APIs and whatnot. So, you know, The idea behind these sessions is to learn some things and to experiment things and go off in these sorts of different directions and fall down rabbit holes to try to climb back out again. So super, right? Learn a little bit of Swagger. Why not? Apparently, it is the fastest growing open source project. I don't know
By what metric?
By what metric and by whose measurement. But it has a lot of stars. It has a lot of Discord members. It has Docker downloads. By the way,
we're about to be doing that.
We're going to be doing a little bit of Docker. So there we go. And of course, we can subscribe to their newsletter and something standard issue page at the bottom. Okay, great. Well,
and they're hiring. Anybody in the market for a new job?
Yeah, they are hiring. We are also hiring, as it turns out. So that's super. Economic downturn be damned.
Silicon Valley Bank collapse doesn't affect us. It doesn't matter.
Exactly. All right, this sounds very promising. Let us dive into the documentation a little bit. So we go documentation, and we've got getting started. We've got data API documentation. We've got meta API documentation. So that could be very interesting. Let's start with getting started. That's always a good place to start, right? And once again, we got our, let's just do that so it keeps the font size. Okay, so this already feels a little bit smaller. So let me just make that a little bigger. Can everybody read that at home? Yeah, that looks readable, right?
Looks readable, yeah.
So it says it's a simple installation, takes about 3 minutes. Now, I don't know about you, but whenever I'm writing documentation, I'm writing a blog post, I'm writing a how-to.
Never put times.
I don't put the word simple, and I don't put about X minutes.
So at my last job, the demo that we had was like, oh, I'm going to build this thing, and it will only take me 10 minutes to do this fully featured thing. Yeah. And the caveat was for somebody who's already very comfortable with the tool and knows all of the places where you're going to stub your toe and run into gotchas.
Yeah, so it should take about 3 minutes, assuming you've already got the computer and the database and all the packages you need, and you can just cut and paste every single command and run them as a batch, and also your computer is extremely powerful.
And you've already made all the mistakes that aren't mentioned in these docs because no documentation is perfect. So
we're going to find out, right? We've got our prerequisites, Docker or Node. That's interesting. Oftentimes it's one and. So this is an or. All right. So that gives us something. So if we are a Docker user, we can try it this way. We can just Docker run a thing, right? So we get NocoDB latest, pulling down latest. That's production ready.
Yep.
Okay. That's very good. It's fine. We're not going to production right now anyway. So a little pro tip for everyone out there watching the stream, if this is, you're thinking to yourself, oh yeah, like this is how Docker works. You just pull latest. That's fine if you're just playing around and you're testing things and whatnot. But of course, in the real world, if you're running things in production, version pinning, that's critical stuff.
Yeah, that's
right.
Standard for a reason.
Yeah, knowing exactly what software you've deployed and being able to track that back to a verifiable code base, super, super, super important. But in this case, YOLO. Yep. I mean, whatever. Let's just pull latest and see what happens. We could also apparently have a couple of different things here. So if we're using Docker, we could just have an SQLite, which is probably what we'll end up doing for the first time around, right? And if we had MySQL, we could just use, this right here. It gives us the connector, I would imagine.
So the difference between SQLite and the other options here are your SQLite is a local thing. It's actually a file that gets loaded into memory, if I'm remembering correctly. And then all the others are databases that are going to be hosted somewhere else that already exist.
Yeah, so if you don't specify a database, then it will use SQLite by default.
Yeah, like Django. Django does that. If you just run it, the database that backs it is the SQLite.
Yeah, you got it. That's exactly it. So all these other ones here, Postgres, SQL Server, this is going to assume, I imagine, that we already actually have these resources available to us. So once again, we're simple installation, takes about 3 minutes, assuming you've already got an entire database infrastructure and admin access on that infrastructure.
I've gotten myself into so many problems with Postgres. Two jobs ago, data engineer. Oh my gosh, the problems I ran into.
Right. So okay, we're going to stick with SQLite for the first time around because it's SQL, but it's just a file on the local file system that gets loaded into memory. We don't have to have actual infrastructure set up to make that go. And that's very nice. And it gives us here a little bit of tips, right? We can persist data in Docker. If you plan to input, oh, this is fun. If you plan to input some special characters, you may need to change the character set.
Yeah.
What do you think they mean by special characters?
Let's find out.
Let's find out.
Yeah.
Exactly. All right, well, that's good to know. Let's make a note of that. Special characters.
Yep. I've got analog notes so that I can write things down without everybody having to endure the clickety clack of my keyboard.
We provide different Docker Compose YAML files under this directory, and it leads to it leads to GitHub.
Okay.
And here are some examples. So if we wanted to take and git clone, and we want to do this on a local machine, we want using Docker Compose, which is not a bad option. We could try that out at some point as well, obviously. And then, of course, if we have our Postgres infrastructure already, SQL Server infrastructure already, and it's just going to give us different directories containing different Docker Compose options. And that would just go. So that makes sense. Okay, fair enough. And once again, a little warning if we're going to use special characters. If we happen to be using NPX, we're not going to be using NPX on stream today, although maybe at some point in the future. If you happen to be running Homebrew, Homebrew, for those of you who do not use Macs, is kind of like APT or Package Manager, right? Chocolatey if you're in the Windows world. Homebrew, same thing, right? And they also apparently distribute executables. And I don't know about you, but there is absolutely nothing I like more than running unsigned
executables that you got from the internet.
Just lying around on the internet.
Oh, like it's 2008 and you just installed LimeWire?
It makes me feel super safe.
It's only your work computer. What could go wrong?
What could go wrong?
I'm sure our IT department would love that.
They would absolutely love for us to do that.
Yeah.
We provide a simple Node.js application for getting started.
Again, simple. Don't put this in your doc.
Simple Node.js application. We're going to put big old quotes around that, right? But nonetheless, these are different options. We can try these things out, in a variety of different ways. And here, apparently, we can also run it in the clouds.
We need to get on this list.
And we need to get on this list. So you know what? Today is the first day
of the rest of our lives.
And maybe we can get on this as well. Probably have some free BSD and free NAS options, which is actually super cool. And a code sandbox? No wonder my computer is going nuts on the fan right now.
Yeah.
I'm running an entire code sandbox in this browser, even as we speak.
What code what even is that?
What even is?
It's some kind of iframe.
Oh my goodness. And also we got some YouTube links. Okay, so we're going to get in touch with the NoCodeDB community. Mm-hmm. And I'm going to say, can we take and move the code sandbox that you are now force loading into my browser when I expected a web page with no code running in it? And now I'm wondering if you're mining cryptocurrency. But you know what? It's
open source. Can we just make a pull request to catch that documentation?
Maybe we could just do that.
Side swerve this stream into,
right?
Oh no.
All right. So you know what? Maybe tomorrow we'll do a special edition stream where we all learn how to use GitHub together, right? And then we'll make an open source pull request on this. We'll have some fun. Whatever. Okay. So we've looked at the documentation. We think to ourselves, all we need to do is do this Docker run, and in principle, it should go.
In principle.
That doesn't seem unreasonable, right? There's apparently some environment variables we might need to know about. So they all start with NC, except when they don't.
So you've got NCDB that says CR database URLs, and then you've got something else that says database URL. Can be used instead of NCDB.
NCDB, because in the JDBC URL format. So tell me you are an open source project without telling me you're an open source project, right? So look, this is no shame. I have absolutely written software in my life that is less consistent than this, that is running in production to this day. No shame, right? But it's good to be aware of these things when you head into a new project, that assumptions you might have out of the gate with oh, look at this. And you just read this and you go, all of our variables begin with NC, actually maybe not. And it's good to sort of be aware of these things going into it, right?
So the recommended ones included something about Redis. Are they making assumptions about?
Are they making assumptions about Redis?
Or like what we want to do?
Interesting. Yeah, here we are, custom Redis URL. I don't think we're going to be using any Redis today.
Right.
Do we need to use Redis? I don't. We're going to find out.
Yeah.
Right? So, all right, no problem. This is fine. Everything's fine. Right? This is the first steps to jumping into a new project is to be like, what the heck is going on?
Yep.
And then you figure out what the heck is going on. Right? So let's go back to our installation page. And I think we should just try it. And we're going to do this Docker run somewhere. Right?
Yep.
Where should we do this Docker run? Do we have a good spot for Docker run?
I mean, my first instinct is on your computer.
On my computer. What if I don't have Docker on my computer?
Spin up a VM somewhere.
You spin up a VM somewhere, right? Especially, again, we're talking about running unsigned code on your work computer, right? It's like Docker has had breakout vulnerabilities in the past.
Yep. I mean,
right?
I follow Ian Coldwater on Twitter too.
Yeah, as well, we all should, right? Honk. So I suggest that we maybe run this in somewhere where I don't potentially blow up my own computer, is my preference. Why don't we take and run that in, I don't know, the cloud?
The cloud. Is there a cloud where perhaps you have access to lots of resources that you get for free as part of your employment?
Diego's got a cloud behind him. Diego, can you think of a cloud provider where we could run this?
There are many, but first one that comes to mind is Scaleway.
Scaleway.
Why not?
Yeah, well, we could do that. Let's try actually running that. Let's try running that in Scaleway. So I'm going to take it. I'm going to go ahead and load up the Scaleway console. Now, and I mentioned this I mentioned this in previous sessions, and I mentioned this to everybody that comes onto the stream, and I'll continue to mention this as well. We're not here to pitch Scaleway. I'm not trying to sell you anything, but we are going to use the resources that are available to us, right? In this case, the resource available to us is this.
I think I have a $25 AWS gift card knocking around somewhere. Maybe one day we'll do that as well.
Maybe we could check that out.
I mean, that'll be got in 2 seconds flat, I'm assuming.
Yeah. So what's cool here? So we got, we have the word Kubernetes. Maybe we'll click on that at some point, right? We got some compute instances. Look at this. Managed databases, Postgres, MySQL, Redis. We thought we might need some Redis later. We didn't know, but it turns out we have these things available to us. So maybe at some point we'll use these things. I don't know. Do we need private networks? Do we need load balancers? Do we need secrets? At some point, probably.
Probably.
Right? We're going to need these things. So it's good to know that we have these as potential things available to us. But for the purposes of just getting started, I'm a bit old school when it comes to new projects and new software and trying things for the first time. And I try to work with the most basic, the simplest possible example of the thing, right? Keep it simple. Kubernetes, as we've discussed for a couple hours already on stream, is maybe not the most simple thing out of the gate. So if we're trying a new project and we don't know what it does and we don't know how to make it go and we see that there are things we don't understand about it, do we want to jump headfirst into the most complicated possible iteration of that thing?
I saw a good, I think it was a Kelsey Hightower analogy about Kubernetes, like that not everything can be scaled down like a 747, right? And that some things are just built for, but we should still maybe try and make it as plain sized as we can.
We should
start with.
Yeah. So why don't we just start with like an instance, right? We're just going to start with an instance. And we're going to see if we can just deploy it to an instance. And if we can get it running on one, whatever we want to call it, node, instance, machine, pick your language you like to use. If we can make it go there, then I think we should try to make it go, for example, with a database as opposed to SQLite, right? Because then we learned a little bit about other infrastructure. And then if we go, okay, we have a database, we can make that go, then we can move on to the next complicated thing. And obviously, when we're talking about hierarchy of difficulty, going from a managed database to Kubernetes, I believe, is just one step, right?
I'm sure we'll discover more steps.
The first step, yeah. There's one first step.
One first step. Okay, so let's create an instance. Let's put it in, Paris 2? Sure, let's put it in Paris 2. I like the number 2. Here we can select our instance. Just let's pick a tiny one.
Yep.
Right? We're just messing around here. We don't need much of anything. 2 gigs, a CPU and 2 gigs of RAM. Do you think that's enough?
Should be.
More than enough.
Well, for Kubernetes?
No, not for Kubernetes.
Not for Kubernetes.
Right? We're just going to do a little Docker.
It should be. It
Right?
might be slow, but it should be.
But yeah, but I'm thinking
That's fine.
Like if it sucks, we destroy it and we start a new one.
Yep.
Right? Okay. You convinced me. Let's go up to play 2 nano instead of the Pico.
Sure.
And that gives us 2 CPUs and it gives us 4 gigs and it gives us many more megabits of bandwidth than we actually need. So that's fine. I'm going to choose our image. We got Ubuntu, we get the Debian, we got the CentOS, Debian?
Debian? Don't know.
Debian? It's been Debian all my life. I don't know.
I'm adding it to the list of things we didn't
Adding to the list, yeah, exactly. Right up there with Quebec Tool.
Yeah.
Which is how you pronounce the Kubernetes control.
And no code B.
And no code B. Exactly. We could also put it on GPUs. No, actually we can't. I don't think this is going to work. No. We also have our insert. Whoa, Docker.
Exactly.
What? Docker? Let's try that. Let's press the Docker button and see what happens.
So we've got WordPress as well.
We've
Shout
got
out to my
WordPress.
PHP DevRel friends.
Woo! PHP for life. Okay. So let's press the Docker button. We're going to add a volume. System volume 10 gigs, total storage 10 gigs. I don't think we need to add anything else. 10 gigs sounds like
that's a lot.
Many more gigs than we need.
That's a couple movies at least.
Right. Select a volume to run it from. We're just running from the system volume. Again, this is not production ready. All right. Do not put fingers directly inside machine. Don't do this in the real world. We're just playing around. Enter a name and optional tags. Sad? I don't want it to be sad. Let's pick another name. Focused. There we go. Sure. Focused Carson. Yeah, super. We could add some tags if we wanted to. We're not going to. There could be some advanced options. You know what? Off the top of my head, I couldn't even tell you what's in that menu. Okay, I can tell you what's in that menu, but we're going to pretend like we don't know.
The point is, it doesn't matter right now.
It doesn't matter, right? I already set up my SSH key here, so it's fine, right? You would have to do this in the real world to put your SSH key. I already did it. It's fine. And it's going to give us an idea of how much it costs. I think probably we should run this up the ladder to purchasing.
Yeah, make a PO.
And and then see if we can get
your boss and their boss to sign off.
Their boss to sign off on that. And then in we net 90 on that, I guess. And so in about 3 months or so, we should be able to hit. Or we could just launch the instance and pay the 3 cents. Whatever. Also, and I do want to point this out for the technically inclined, people who like more of the tickety-tack and less of the pointy-clicky. You can use the Scaleway CLI tool to make all of this go. And this is actually a cool thing. This is, I don't want to say it's new, but it's something that we've worked on here. And a big shout out to the teams here that are working on, open source tooling, working on developer tooling, doing what I think honestly is thankless work, making sure that I can just type SCW space and have programmatic access to the Scaleway infrastructure. It's a really pretty smooth experience now.
I'm a command line enjoyer, so I really appreciate that exists.
Exactly. So, but for today, we're just going to use the pointy clicky because here we go. So let's create an instance. I'm going to create that instance. And we just go through the normal dance that everything goes through, which we does the auto allocation and whatnot. And in fact, there was an engineer, a Scaleway engineer, who spoke at FOSDEM back in February in Belgium, big open source conference happens every year in Brussels, in the Low Countries in February, but anyway, who did a whole talk on how virtual machines, are assigned, how we figure out where to put them, because it's real hardware that's underneath and so on and so forth. And the speed at which this occurs is fantastic. There's a lot of interesting optimizations going on under there. So I don't know if the talk is recorded, if it's on YouTube somewhere, go check that out. FOSDEM, just search for FOSDEM and Scaleway and you'll learn a whole bunch of cool stuff. All right, so we have what appears to be an instance here. We've got a public IP, it's okay. And you're thinking to yourself, oh, we're sharing information we shouldn't be sharing on stream. You can't log into it anyway, right? You don't have the key. Like, oh, but it's gonna be attacked, people are gonna DOS it. It's fine, I'm gonna destroy it as soon as the stream is over. So don't worry about it.
Don't do this with real life stuff.
But don't do this with real life stuff, right?
Yeah, don't screenshare your production.
Yeah, exactly. So here we have an SSH command. So we can just SSH into it, and we're gonna do another thing you're never supposed to do, which is SSH into things as root. Right?
Move fast, break things.
Fine. Do all the things, don't do all the things, or just copy this. And I'm gonna log into it. And I'm gonna log into it in a terminal window that for the moment you can't see. And I'm gonna switch over to that in a second because I don't like sharing this particular part of the terminal experience.
I can see it.
Yes, you can see it. Please don't hack me. And just, whoops, copy pasta error. There we go. Yes, I am sure I want to continue connecting to it.
Yeah.
And now we are connected to it. So I'm going to go ahead and share that particular terminal. Ooh.
I was thinking earlier, we need a Doctor Who drop. Dan was talking about going back and forward in time at the same time.
Yeah, that's actually.
I don't know. They're probably copyright issues.
Yeah, we'll figure it out. We'll figure it out. Fair use, I guess. So here we are. We are on our instance. It is a real instance. We are extremely dangerously logged in as root. Again,
It'll be fine.
do not try this at home, kids. We are. I was about to say we're trained professionals, but
What a horrifying thought. Don't ever say that again. Oh my god.
my goodness. It's fine. Everything's fine. All right. So here we go. We are logged in. Everything's good. It's a real machine. We type ls and we can see things. We can see that we type W. We can see that we're logged in. If we have top, we can see we have things right. It's fine. It's the machine is not doing anything. It's our machine. We haven't done anything with it yet. So there we go. We are logged in. Super. Fresh iTerm instance. If you've used iTerm, it tries to make you install all sorts of funny stuff. Don't worry about it. It's fine. Now what? We are going to take.
Right?
What's that, Diego?
You have Docker, right?
Yeah. Well, in principle, we have Docker. Let's find out. So I'm just going to type the word Docker.
Yeah, see what it
See
does.
what it does.
Oh,
Look at that.
very nice.
Yes.
Look at that. It appears we have Docker. So if you type Docker, and you can see that again, if you're new to Docker, it's okay, right? Docker is a whole thing. It's been around for a long time. It's a huge ecosystem behind it, but everybody has to start somewhere, right? So feel free to go on the Docker website, do the how-tos, do the learnings. There's so much. It's such a huge ecosystem.
Yeah, it's enormous.
Right? That it's going to feel overwhelming at first. And there's no way for it not to feel that way if you've never used it before. And just trust me when I tell you, and you can trust me because I'm an extremely credible figure.
You're a trained professional.
I'm a trained professional. It's okay to feel overwhelmed at first. It really, really is. And I got to be honest with you, I've been using Docker for years, and it sometimes still feels a little overwhelming.
I mean, that's
Right.
even without getting into the philosophical, like, what's the difference between a container and a VM and a
Right.
virtual environment and
then like, what even is Docker? Is Docker containers? Is Docker tooling? Is Docker an ecosystem? The answer is yes.
Yep. Let's find someone from Docker and strong argument to being on this.
Right. We should find someone. So we can do things like we can list the images that are available to us. There are none because this is fresh.
Well, what happens
Right.
if you just copy paste that command?
So that's what we're going to do. So thinking back to our documentation, remember that SQLite copy pasta that we were looking at? I'm going to take and just copy it, assuming I can. Oh, that's weird. Okay, we'll do it that way. And Clefairy, excellent. And oh my goodness, control sequence. Allow this in the future? Yeah, let's just allow it. It's fine. It's fine. And whatever it was I allowed, I'm root. It's fine.
It was an iTerm thing, not a.
Yeah, it was an
Yeah,
iTerm thing,
yeah.
exactly. And I'm going to take it, I'm going to paste that in. So Docker run nocodb. Obviously we're going to take and we're going to load a couple of directories so they can be available within the container. We'll give it a port. So we're going to be doing some port mapping. And then what image, nocodb latest. And if you've never seen the terminal before, again, it's okay. If you've never seen a terminal before, just a pro tip. If you have a really, really long command and it's wrapping and you're on stream and it looks ugly, you can use the little backslash to just break your command up onto multiple lines. And then the last thing you type without the slash is what actually ends up getting executed. So that's what we're going to do now. We're going to Docker run. It's unable to find the image locally because, of course, it doesn't exist locally.
This is a fresh
This is
VM.
a
It was
fresh-
only born 2 minutes ago.
Precisely. So where is it pulling it from? Where do you figure? Where do you think that image is coming from?
Docker has a known trusted source repository of images,
It does?
like pip, like PyPy, for example, with Python.
For example, yeah, it's pulling it from a repository of images. Yeah. Pro tip out there, if you are an open source project and you are currently hosting your images on Docker's free image registry, I think you've got something like 30 days to find a new home because they are discontinuing their free hosting service. That was announced like 48 hours ago. So if you're out there and you're listening and you're thinking to yourself, I run a popular open source project and I host my Docker images on Docker's free image registry, you look into that, I guess, is my advice to you right now.
And if you
Good
are
thing.
Docker DevRel right now, lo siento, I'm sorry.
Good thing Scaleway has a registry.
Good to scale. So Scaleway has a registry. We're going to be putting our stuff on the Scaleway registry. GitHub's got a registry. There's other options that are out there. Right.
There's a question that we have here.
Oh, here's a question from Coco Tonton.
Are instant apps based on Ubuntu? Yes, this one is.
The answer is yes. I have nothing to add.
Yeah. I'm an
That's it.
Ubuntu kid. I know that you two each have your own flavors of Linux that you use personally that are not Ubuntu, right?
Right.
Like-
No, I like Ubuntu.
Okay, I thought you were.
I like Ubuntu.
Listen.
Yeah,
Well,
I was rolling Fedora up until a few months ago, but I couldn't manage to make my Stream Deck work. So I rolled back into
Yeah.
Debian-based
The Stream Deck is load bearing.
Pop OS.
It's
Yeah.
absolutely true. All right, so we've does anybody remember Slackware? That's the first Linux I ever used. I didn't want to say anything, but once we start talking about distributions, I bring up Slackware every time.
For me, it was Mandrake.
Mandrake.
Mine
Yeah.
was Ubuntu.
Wow. Ubuntu.
Yeah, put it on a USB stick.
The learning Ubuntu?
The really lightweight one.
Yeah,
the
tiny one. The one you get.
It
Oh,
was.
do you remember those?
I had a really old
The
laptop
discs.
that would like 1 gig of RAM, and I was like, I want this
Yeah.
to still be able to watch YouTube. Which it
Did
couldn't.
you- Did you request the discs that they sent out? They
You did
sent
what?
you a physical disc over mail, physical mail.
They would mail you a physical disc?
Yeah, when the
I'm
Ubuntu
not
first
old
started,
enough
they did that.
Like the
And
original
it's-
Netflix, right? They'd mail you DVDs.
Yeah, but you didn't have to
I'm
send it back.
28, which is practically fresh out the womb.
Yeah,
in terms of
seriously.
This stuff.
You're
So,
like a little baby.
I am.
Okay, so we have a thing. We hit enter. Some things happened. It said pulling from. We saw a couple of alphanumeric strings. It says pull complete. Again, if you've never used Docker before, this is just image layers getting built because Docker is all about layers on top of layers, file system layers, so on and so forth. It gets built. We've got a SHA digest, which if we were more security minded, we could compare against a known good SHA to get the correct outcome to go, we actually pulled down the image that we expected to, and it built the thing that we expected it to build, which is, of course, super important if you're running as root. We're not going to do any of that because we don't care.
And we have 15 minutes left.
Right. It's fine. Everything's fine. So
it's done a pull.
it's done a
But
pull.
the command we actually ran was a Docker run. So is there a container running right now?
It's a really good question. How could we find out what containers are running right now.
I don't know, but I know that if you do that, you'll
let's
get
type Docker, and we're going to look at this, and we're going to see if there's anything in here that seems to me I don't know, maybe Docker info. Does that sound like a thing? I don't know.
Yep, Docker info exists. Displays system-wide information.
Docker images. That sounds interesting.
Yeah, Docker images is
right.
List images.
Like, and here's
that's list images, though, which is not the same thing as containers. Because an image is what you use to instantiate a container, right?
Interesting.
An image is like the recipe, and the container is like, I've made this dish.
The container's the thing. So maybe we need to find a way to list containers, not images.
We'll scroll up to containers.
We could scroll up to containers, or I could just highlight it.
Oh, Docker PS. There we go.
So if you've never used Docker before.
Yeah. That's me displaying how long it's been since I actually ran Docker.
You think to yourself, Docker list, Docker ls? Nope. It's PS.
Intuitive at all.
Right, which is just like running PS on a Star Nix machine, right? It's a sysv machine if you're old like me, and you're listing your processes. So you run Docker PS, and you're going to see.
Oh, there's that hash. Yeah.
There's this exactly. So this is the internal reference, right here. We can see that the image, and again, I apologize for the screen wrapping. I want to make sure everybody can read. Then so the font is big, right? If you're running this on your computer everybody's got wide screens now with tiny little font that I can't read anymore because it's old. And what you can see here is the container ID, right? You can see the image here, and it's latest in this case. You see the command that actually got run inside of it, right? See how long ago it was created. It's relative, so it's 5 minutes ago. You see the status of it. It's been up 4 or 5 minutes, and you can see what ports.
So put that in your browser.
Right, are running 0000, 8080, and so on and so forth. Now, if I put 0000 into my browser on my local machine, I'm going to get my machine.
Yeah, you need to, because this isn't your machine. This is a VM.
This is a VM, exactly.
So we need to do some kind of forwarding.
So, and then we're saying we're exposing port 8080 of the container to port 8080 of the machine hosting, containing that container, if you will.
Does that have some sort of URL that we can get at from Scaleway?
Well, that's a very good question. Right, so let's.
That's a genuine question, by the way.
It's a genuine question. In fact, that's what we're going to check out right now. And so I am going to very quickly copy the public URL, right, of the thing, and I'm going to open up a new tab, and I'm going to paste it in here. I'm going to share this here in a second. Okay, good. It does work. So let me take and
that would have been embarrassing.
I would have. You know what? Exactly. So I'm going to take and once again share. Exactly.
I like that it was early, so it was just on your face.
Yeah. So we're going to take and we're going to share this tab. And that is literally, I just typed in. The best. Literally typed in the public IP, which you all have now.
Yeah.
That's okay. Again, I'm destroying this in a moment
this
anyway.
This is one of the best things about live demos that you can
and
be like,
8080, and you can just sign up and become the super admin of this right now. So I'm going to enter in my work email, which if anybody wants to email me, all right, it's okay. It's fine. You can email me. I like it when people email me.
It's got that annoying thing where it's as you start typing, it goes, that's not valid. It's
not valid. No, I'm not done yet. I know what an email address is. I'm going to type a password. This is not my Scaleway password. We're logging into a machine that I'm going to destroy at the end of this, right? So I'm just going to put 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. That's my password.
It said it had to have at least 8 letters, but those are all numbers.
Yeah.
Bad UI.
Yeah.
Cancelled.
I'm not going to save anything. And so now I am, look at this. We appear to have NoCoDB running on an instance in the cloud.
I love all the call to actions on the side of sign up on GitHub, the free demo.
Yeah, exactly. Look. So how open source projects are remunerated, how we can find a way to ensure that people who are working on open source are distributing functional code that does useful things for individuals and businesses
to use for free on our streams like this.
to use for free on their streams, how can we ensure that those people can pay rent and eat food and keep the lights on? It's a huge issue right now.
I mean, it came up recently with Core.js, right?
It's come up recently with insert one of hundreds of things here.
Yeah.
Right? In fact, I was actually at KubeCon Amsterdam. We mentioned this last time. And there was a talk by Floor Dries, who works over at Ivan. And the talk was about, the travails of open source developers and projects and maintenance and burnout and all these issues. And one of those items is, of course, comes down to, anxiety over making ends meet at the end of the month, right? There are a lot of different ways that we can support open source projects, a lot of different ways that different individuals, organizations, companies, governments can support open source projects. And one of the ways is for that open source project to go, hey, the code is on GitHub, go ahead and run it if you want to. And in fact, if you want to contribute, we'd be happy to have you contribute. We've got a Discord you can join, and we can talk about those contributions, and we can work on pull requests together. But at the end of the day, we got to get paid, because as a species, we have not yet figured out how to eliminate capitalism. It's fine, okay? And as long as we're living in a capitalist state and capital is scarce, it's okay, I think, for open source projects that reach a certain size to go, we are going to offer some sort of paid services, some sort of maybe hosted option, some sort of way to go, we'll help you do the thing, we'll run the thing for you, we'll provide paid support plans, right? I think that's okay. I don't know.
To be absolutely clear, I was not saying, I love these as a critical thing. I like the number of them. It's like, I've got Twitter. Do they have Mastodon?
No, I don't see any Mastodon yet.
That's Discord, isn't it?
That's the Discord, yeah. All right, no problem. There are a couple different ways, as we mentioned. Oh, look at this. If we change, look at that. Okay, cool. Is you can also support, sponsor us. You get GitHub sponsorships, right? That's another way to do. I sponsor a couple projects on GitHub in various ways. There's Ko-fi, K-O-F-I, right? It's another way to sponsor people. Just good old-fashioned PayPal. Yeah. Right. So if you got projects you're using out there, using open source, and the open source developer is just, hey, if you like what I'm doing, buy me a coffee. If the project is important to you and people are using it, just chip a couple bucks their way on the monthly. It makes a huge difference. Huge difference. We could get into the whole thing about how Scaleway, open source, what we sponsor and how we do it. We're not going to do it on stream here today, but rest assured we do too. So we have it running. It looks like it's working. We hit new project. What happens? It gives us a random name. I love rhyme names. Better flying fish. Lovely. We'll hit create.
Using the same random word choice
thing that we are.
Yeah, it reminds me of the one that we used in my last company.
Exactly. Well. And so we can, there's user management, there's API tokens. I can invite other people to the thing. I can add a new table.
And now, if you destroy this container and recreated it, I imagine this would all go away because of the line in that start guide about data persisting.
Yeah, that's a good point.
You needed to mount it in a particular place on your VM.
So why don't we take and just destroy. Well, let's destroy it. Let's stop it and then restart it and see what happens.
Yeah, cool.
Does that sound good?
Sure.
Sounds like a plan.
All right. So we created a new table. We've got now data in the table. Data in a table, right? We could do a whole stream on just showing you NoCodeDB or whatever. That's not the point, right? Today, at least. Although I think we have an idea about building a thing in NoCodeDB later on. That's the next month.
We're not going to get it done in the next 4 minutes.
Exactly. So I'm just going to leave this here, right? And I guess we could go back to the, why not? Let's go back to the, we'll figure out maybe a more fluid way to do this going forward. But we'll go back to this. And we are going to stop one or more running containers using Docker stop. And then, whoops, I hit tab, which you can do, and I didn't even think about it, which is muscle memory. But again, if you're new to the console, if you're new to working in the command line, a lot of times just hitting tab will do a best guess at what the next thing is you want. Sometimes it is what you want, and sometimes it's a magnificent error. So be careful when hitting tab. In this case, it was what we wanted. Docker stop NoCodeDB. I'm just going to hit enter.
And you can see under names in the previous line, it's got NoCodeDB. And that was the name we passed it when we did the run command.
Exactly. I'm going to hit Docker PS. Once again, you can see there's nothing there, right? So it's not running anymore. And if I go back to my tab, always back to the tab, we share this again. There we go. And it shared the wrong one. Screen. Oh, wow. That's weird. Allow. Okie dokie. What did I do differently that time?
Good question. I wasn't paying attention to what you were doing on your laptop.
Why, I just did the same thing I did last time. Share. There we go. Okay. Hey. All right. So share this tab. We're figuring it out, right? We're doing things live. So I didn't hit refresh. I didn't do anything. So, this is why it's still here. But if I hit reload, you'll see the site can't be reached because
nothing's being served.
Nothing's being served anymore. Of course, we can't reach it. I'm not going to bother shifting back to the terminal. We've already seen, the Docker run. So I'm just gonna fire it back up again.
So you can't reuse that name.
Right.
Yeah. So using the same run command from that tutorial fails because the name was already in use, which indicates that container is not completely gone. It's just stopped. It's dormant.
Right.
So hitting docker run NoCodeDB gives us a screen that says app started successfully. Visit localhost 8080.
And then I fat fingered it. So there, that's a daemon. Oh my God, I am fat fingering my own terminal right now, which I'm happy I'm not sharing because my Linux system administrator cred is going through the window right now.
What happens is that when you're typing and somebody's, well, maybe I should stop watching you because if you're typing and someone's watching you, it's really harder.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah, exactly. Oh my God. Docker. Oh.
There will be at least more fun for us watching.
Yeah, exactly.
Watching you fail.
There, I'm just gonna load it up here. It's fine. It's fine. I'm able to find it locally. Oh, so much fat fingering. Here we are.
Interesting. It's failing to find an image called NoCodeDB. I guess that's because it's not an image called NoCodeDB.
Yeah, no, but it's the exactly.
Yeah.
It's the image, and I have to specify the container because it already exists. There we So
that's the screen you had earlier.
Let's us. Yeah.
Like a minute ago. Cool. Once we figured out the right thing to
anyway,
do,
the point is doing things live. It's lots of fun. It's lots of fun, and we have a lot of fun here on the stream.
So if you hit reload on that tab, it's not working.
It's not going to work, and it's not going to work because I'm a huge idiot, and I am not doing anything properly on the terminal because I am, despite the fact that nobody can see my terminal, somehow nervous about making mistakes in the terminal.
Is it not just docker start NoCodeDB?
Yeah.
Because it was docker stop.
Yeah.
Cool. Now do docker ps.
And we are imagining the outputs of the terminal.
And look at that.
There it is.
Oh, and the data's persisted.
And the data has persisted.
I assume if you destroyed the container, it would not.
No, that would be my assumption.
Then can you please show the command that you were running for the docker run command on the website documentation?
If you go back to the tutorial for NoCodeDB.
Oh yeah, we can go back to the tutorial for NoCodeDB.
Yeah. So the key part is the -v second line, right?
Mm-hmm.
You're mounting a volume where your data will be persisted. So that volume is mounted locally on your host machine. That's
so
how your data is
persisted.
persisted.
Actually included.
Yes, right. So actually we can take and I can show everybody, and this time I will switch back to the terminal and show everybody what that
means. Can we
means.
get a JSON dump of the database or something?
So if we go back to the terminal, and again, we're back on this machine, and we do an ls, we see that there's a new directory that wasn't there before, right? If we go into that directory, we see that there's a noco.db, nocodb. Do you think that's where they got their name? Anyway, we see that there is a noco.db file, and that is literally just the SQLite file, right? And it's persisted on the file system because, as Diego astutely pointed out, and of course we knew this walking into it, but we have to pretend like we don't, that the -b actually mounted something in a local file system and then made that available.
It is implementing that tip that I genuinely didn't realize was implemented.
There you go.
Yeah.
There you go. And if we're curious what that file is, we could just type file space. This is another command line thing. We can see here that it is in fact an SQLite database, and it was last written to using a particular version of SQLite, which is kind of nice to know, I guess. But there we go. That's the data. The data persists. Now, what we could do at a future stream, we'll continue to play around with this. What happens if we destroy the container, but we don't destroy the SQLite database? I think that would be interesting as an experiment, right? What happens if we destroy the container, then make a whole new thing from scratch, and then overwrite that database with this database? What would that do?
And which of these operations will eventually Kubernetes be doing when it's doing its auto-scaling and rebalancing and self-healing?
Precisely. Oh my gosh, what happens if we deploy multiple nodes inside of our cluster and each one of them has its own SQLite database?
Well, we're going to find out.
We're going to find out. Now, again, we don't want to really do that, okay? But we're going to do it just to see what happens.
Yep.
All right? Because it's fun to mess around and break things on purpose in order to better understand why these things are breaking and what we can do to prevent these sorts of problems in the future, right?
Why are the correct ways to do things
the correct ways? Exactly.
And understanding that helps you actually remember them.
That's the idea. Okay. Well, that was fun.
Did some code.
Yeah. We did some tapping
finally.
and ticking and pointing and clicking. And of course, the little dalliances and divergences and serendipitous conversations and discussions. We are at time, and I want to be respectful of everybody's time, including our own. I'm hungry. I want to get some lunch. Thank you so much, Diego, for being a good sport, as always, managing the back end. There's actually, you would be surprised how much work goes into making a stream go. And Diego, really thank you, as always, for the work that you do on the back end. And also the soundboard. Super, super appreciated. Eli, thank you for making the way all the way from your snowy northern climes.
Yeah, it genuinely is. We had so much snow last week.
To sunny Paris here for the day. Super
responsible for our paleness.
Exactly. Yes, blame. Yes, exactly. That's why. That's just so pale, so pale. And thank you, as always, to you, the audience, for coming out and hanging with us on stream. Thank you for the questions and the commentary from the Twitch stream today. Always fun to have people participating. And as always, if there's things you want to see on stream, if there's stuff you want us to play around with, if there's mistakes you want us to make and then explain why they were mistakes and then explain how to fix those mistakes, I can't promise we can do the last part, but we'll certainly do the first part. Let us know on Twitter. Shoot me an email. You have my email address now. I don't mind it. It's cool. And we will see you next week.
Yeah.
Same bat time, same bat channel. Thanks a lot, everybody. Bye-bye.